What do you want from me?
Any small part you're willing to give?
Is that all? I thought you wanted to get married.
This Sunday,
Hope Park is off the failing schools list.
You can't do that. You're not meant to touch us.
We have proved that we're up to the challenge.
They want too much. Everyone wants too much.
We're not failing our students and their parents.
Sit down and put your hands on your head. Now!
Let's not do anything stupid.
Unmissable Hope and Glory, this Sunday at 8:20 on BBC One.
One of the ways the young think they're safeguarded against the fate and future of their grandparents is by their names. Sharons don't suffer from dementia, or Damians from incontinence. And if the old ones can think at all, they must wonder if it's their names that are part of the trouble. The trumpet has not yet sounded for Trevor, but it will.
An Evening with Alan Bennett begins with Telling Tales, his personal and childhood memoirs, Saturday at 8:55 on BBC Two.
This is BBC One in the Midlands. Now the news at 10 o'clock with Peter Sissons and Sue Beardsmore.
Britain's autumn deluge goes on, feeding the floods and the despair. It's the worst weather most can remember, with no relief in sight. And Tony Blair admits there must be more investment in flood protection. England's education watchdog resigns. Teachers' unions say good riddance. And the Swede who managed England speaks of the challenge and why he's up to it.
And here in the Midlands tonight, hospital protesters vent their anger as Tony Blair tours the region's flood zone. And as the waters recede for some, the victims ask who pays for the damage.
Good evening. The worst floods since 1947 are still gripping large parts of central and northern England tonight, bringing misery to thousands and making a mockery of tested flood defences. An inch of rain fell in many parts in a couple of hours, and more is forecast. Tony Blair, who visited the worst hit areas, said we'd have to face up to flooding becoming less rare, and promised a lot more investment in flood protection. In central England, the Severn, on which stand Worcester, Shrewsbury and Bewdley, is giving most concern. In the north, it's the Derwent, the Ouse and the Aire, which have inundated York, Malton and Stamford Bridge. First to Worcester, and our reporter Richard Bilton.
Tonight in Worcester, the army are moving people through the water. The bridge in the centre of the city is now closed. The flood's too dangerous in the dark.
Not very good, really. I've never seen it like this at all. I've lived here 40 years.
The high waters arrive through the night. The people of Worcester, the latest living by the Severn, to see its filthy waters sweep through their homes.
At 3 o'clock this morning, it was starting to come up and it just rapidly came. Within half an hour, it was just flooded in here.
In some places, the water rose too quickly. At this hotel, 5 people stranded, ladders and boats involved in their rescue.
I was alone, but it wasn't cold and the electric is working, but I was alone.
The water in Worcester went further than homes. Flooding in the hospital boiler room led to drastic measures.
2, 3.
With heating and light in jeopardy, patients had to be moved. Ronald Coates, recovering from an operation, one of 67, to be shifted to a new site.
We've got to look after the safety of people, and I mean, it's no good if all the power goes. They would be in a desperate situation then, wouldn't they?
All available ambulances were called in. Some people found themselves caught from both sides. Shirley Barnes was forced from her hospital bed as the waters approached her home.
I'm worried about the flat. It's all flooded underneath, and the police won't let us back down there anyway because it's too flooded. So I'm glad we're going to Redditch to have the op.
That's magic. Throughout the day, the rescues never stopped, not always dramatic, but people forced from their homes as the water inched higher.
It was advisable to come because the electrics might be switched on, and we're all electric, you see.
Further back up the Severn, the same bloated river causing the damage in Worcester was surveyed by the Prime Minister. He was in Bewdley to see at first hand the worst flooding in half a century.
The flooding is appalling, and for the people who've been moved out of their homes and businesses, it's a very serious problem for them indeed. We've got to put in the right flood defences, which, in fact, ironically, here are starting next week. And in the longer term, we've got to do more to combat the reasons why the climate's changing, not just here, but right around Europe and the rest of the world.
All along the Severn, the story is the same. Hundreds of people moved from their homes, businesses destroyed, and the water's still rising. Richard Bilton, BBC News, Worcester.
The other area still badly affected is North Yorkshire. The flood defences in the city of York coped reasonably well, but there was water waist deep in other parts of the county, and the weather forecasters say there's more heavy rain on the way tonight. Robert Hall is there.
In Stamford Bridge, Neil Townsend has made another depressing trip downstairs.
What's a devastation? Fridges full of bottles, light bulbs, shelves, peanuts and crisps. Everything in this fridge is absolutely no good whatsoever.
48 hours ago, Neil was determined to sit it out with his family, but today the children, too frightened to remain marooned, were evacuated by police. He has opted to remain, at least whilst the power's on. In 1066, this village saw a famous English victory. Tonight, it faces defeat by the elements. Along the Derwent Valley, floodwater from the North York moors is spreading relentlessly through farms and properties. Blanche Stacey, 78 and suffering from arthritis, is preparing to leave her home in Elvington. She's seen floods before, but